19th-century Philippines. The essence of the life of José Rizal is marked by the conditions that existed, during his lifetime in the Philippines and around the world, particularly in Europe. Rizal is the product of his era, and his message sets forth a human declaration, that all human beings without any distinction of any kind, are born free and equal in dignity and rights. The 19th century stands out as an extremely dynamic and creative age, especially in Europe and the United States. During this period, such concepts as industrialization, democracy, and nationalism gained ascendancy and triggered revolutionary changes in science, technology, economics, and politics. These changes enabled man to achieve the heights of prosperity, and dignity unattained prior to it. However, the 19th-century Philippines was largely medieval, although signs of progress or change were noted in certain sectors. Its social and economic structure was based on the old feudalistic patterns of abuse and exploitation of Indio. Its censorship and racial discriminatory practices were oppressive. Intellectual decadence prevailed, and the government process has no respect for the needs of the people. Earlier clamor for reforms had remained unheeded. Social discontent caused confusion among the people. Educated members of the class who went abroad, stepped right into the current of modern liberalism, and into the dynamism and creativity of the new era of the Western European continent. These foreign contacts, and the feudal Philippine conditions, deeply influenced the development of a sense of nationhood among the Filipinos. The late 18th century, political and economic changes in Europe, were finally beginning to affect Spain and, thus, the Philippines and its other colonies. Important as a stimulus to trade, was the gradual elimination of the monopoly enjoyed by the galleon to Acapulco. The last galleon arrived in Manila was in 1815, and by the mid-1830s, Manila was open to foreign merchants almost without restriction. The demand for Philippine sugar and abaca, also called hemp, grew, and the volume of exports to Europe expanded, even further after the completion of the Suez Canal in 1869. The growth of commercial agriculture resulted in the appearance of a new class. Alongside the landholdings of the church, and the rice estates of the pre-Spanish nobility, arose haciendas of coffee, hemp, and sugar, which often were the property of enterprising Chinese Filipino mestizos. Some of the families that gained prominence in the 19th century have continued to play an important role in Philippine economy and politics. Not until 1863, was there public education in the Philippines, and even then the church controlled the curriculum. Less than one-fifth of those who went to school could read and write Spanish, and far fewer could speak it properly. The limited higher education in the colony was entirely under clerical direction, but by the 1880s, many sons of the wealthy families were sent to Europe to study. Their nationalism, and a passion for reform blossomed in the liberal atmosphere. Out of this talented group of overseas Filipino students, arose what came to be known as the propaganda movement. Magazines, poetry, and pamphleteering flourished. José Rizal, this movement's most brilliant figure, produced two political novels, Noli Me Tangere (1886), in English, Touch Me Not, and El Filibusterismo (1891), in English, The Reign of Greed, which had a wide impact in the Philippines. In 1892, Rizal returned home and formed the Liga Filipina, a secret organization, whose purpose was to build a new group that sought to involve the people, directly in the reform movement. But Rizal was quickly arrested by the overly fearful Spanish, exiled to a remote island in the south, and finally executed in 1896. Meanwhile, within the Philippines, there had developed a firm commitment to independence among a somewhat less privileged class. Shocked by the arrest of Rizal in 1892, these activists quickly formed the Katipunan under the leadership of Andres Bonifacio, a self-educated warehouseman. The Katipunan was dedicated to the expulsion of the Spanish from the islands, and preparations were made for armed revolt. Filipino rebels had been numerous in the history of Spanish rule, but now for the first time, they were inspired by nationalist ambitions, and possessed the education needed to make success a real possibility.